Hey, welcome back to Trevor in the 80s. And sometimes we go into the early 90s, like the case with this next story. In this video, I'm going to tell you about a true story that happened on Thursday, August 20th, 1992. So stick around. Alright, so what happened was this is an actual original newspaper from August of 92 when this thing happened. I think me, Todd, and Harry both have probably a copy or two of this original newspaper folded up. I pulled this one out. Over the years I made a couple of color copies. So as this thing fades over time, you'll still be able to see kind of what it looks like. So what happened was, the summer of 92, as summer was closing out and we were in August, we had a bunch of rain. Late August, we had a bunch of heavy rains. If I remember right, it was several days of just a lot of hard rain. And the streets flooded, and this all happened in Florence, South Carolina. Streets flooded, the ditches flooded, and so in this photo, that's me in the back in the middle, the tallest one, and wearing a Batman t-shirt. To my right in the white shirt was Todd Parfit, who was a month older than me. And then to my left is my buddy Harry Polis in his green soccer t-shirt. And then in the front is 8-year-old Jordan Pitts, who he's the younger brother of another one of our friends who wasn't there at the time, Jeff Pitts. We all lived in the same neighborhood, within walking distance of each other's house. It had rained for a couple of days and things were flooded, and school had not started yet. Back then, school would start the very, very end of August. Might even have been early September when school started. But we were still playing, and my mom took a couple of photos of that day early that morning when we were out playing around in the flooded streets. Here's a photo here. This shows you how you can't really see the street much in this photo, but this is before the accident happened. This was a yard across the street from where I lived. That's me down in the ditch floating on a raft. That was Todd in the red Coca-Cola t-shirt. I think I'm wearing a Bart Simpson t-shirt. Anyway, we were adventurous kids. We didn't have to wear helmets back then and pads on our bicycles and all that stuff like kids do now. And we all woke up that morning and called each other on the phone and said, "Hey, have you seen the streets?" And it was like, "Yeah." So, "Well, it's flooded everywhere, man. It looks like rivers. It's cool." We said, "Yeah." So Harry had a couple of old rafts in his garage, and he said, "I can get those out and we can all float down the streets and play." It sounded like fun. So me, Todd, and Harry met up, and Harry was in this photo, but he was way just out of focus, just out of the picture in the top left. We all took turns floating down the streets, down the ditches, and through people's yards. We were having fun. This is probably, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And we just played, man. We played hard for a couple hours. The water had a good current to it. This other photo here, a little bit closer up. Anyway, we all took turns riding on the floats down the newly created river, and just had a blast. We weren't thinking about any dangers involved or anything like that. We were just, I had just turned 12 years, or I'm sorry, I was 12, had just turned 13, maybe 12 or so days before this happened. I had just turned 13 years old, and I think Harry was still 12, and Todd had just turned 13 ahead of me. But yeah, we were innocent. We were just out having fun. We didn't really think about the dangers involved in flooded streets and pipes and things like that going on under the water. So we played, had a blast, and if I've got more photos, I can't put my hands on them right now. These are just 3 I could put my hands on. It was a lot of fun. And so what happened was, we were doing this for, I don't know, about an hour or so. It was us 3. It was just me, Todd, and Harry. And we were playing around, and our buddy Jeff Pitts, who lived a couple of streets over, he wasn't with us that morning, but his younger brother, Jordan, who was 8 at the time, he called us, or maybe we were home getting a snack or something, and he called and asked us what we were up to. And we're like, hey man, you ought to come out here. We're floating down the streets on these rafts, having a good time. So Jordan came around, met up with us, and he was a lot shorter than we were, a lot younger than we were, and none of us were thinking about these pipes that went underneath driveways. As the water was way up here, like in this photo, the water covered over the top of these pipes. So you forgot the pipes were even there. But you knew the pipe went under people's driveway. Again, we were kids. We were playing. We weren't thinking about any kind of danger. So this pipe in this photo is the actual pipe that Jordan here was sucked into. So we were all goofing around and playing on these floats, and we decided to go back to my house for some lunch, for some Hot Pockets or something. And me, Todd, and Harry started walking down the street and going back to my house, which was a couple of doors down. Jordan was still having fun. He was actually walking in the ditch, so his feet were on the bottom of the mud down there, and he was just walking. Now, Jordan was way back here walking toward this pipe, which he couldn't see because it was underwater. And he was so small, when he was walking through the ditch, the water came up to about, the water was between that yellow logo on his shirt and the bottom of his neck. That's how deep the water was. Well, when you're 8, that's kind of cool. It's like none of us had swimming pools, and so walking through a big ditch was like playing in a pool. So anyway, this front porch back here was a lady that lived there named Patty Cannon. And thank God she happened to be sitting on her front porch in a swing or something back there, and she was watching us play in the ditch. Me, Todd, and Harry had started walking towards my house to the right of this photo. Jordan was behind us playing in this ditch, kind of scraggling behind about 20-30 feet. We never would have seen him or known that he had gone in that pipe if it hadn't been for the lady back here, Miss Patty Cannon, who was sitting on her porch swing, and she screamed like I never heard a scream before. She yelled out, "Oh my gosh, he went under." And we looked from here over to her, and she was standing up pointing back toward this pipe. And so we all got like a little burst of adrenaline. We all turned around and looked, and we didn't see Jordan. We had just saw him, and then he's gone. He's vanished. And it was just all processing. So me, Todd, and Harry took off running back from down the street a ways to this pipe. And Miss Cannon came off of her front porch and ran across her driveway over to this grassy area, which was probably covered in water way up to here. I mean, it was deep. So me and Todd jump in. Now this isn't the driveway where it happened. This is a couple down. Where in this photo, not this driveway, but the next driveway up here would have been this driveway where it happened at. Anyway, me and Todd, we ran and jumped in the ditch, and it was deeper further back. But we jumped in and we planted our feet down there in the mud, and we just started reaching underwater with our hands, just way down. And we're like, I don't feel Jordan. I don't feel Jordan. And she's yelling that he went under, he got sucked in the pipe or whatever. And so we kept feeling around. And finally, we felt way down here Jordan's hair. I remember feeling his hair. So Jordan had actually got sucked into that pipe, and his whole body was in the pipe. And he took his hands and he grabbed the top of that pipe on that plastic part to stop himself from going through the end of the pipe, through in there. I felt his hair, and Todd felt his hair, but his rest of his body was in that pipe. Other than his, he had one hand gripping right there and one hand gripping right there. I'm sure we both grabbed hair and started pulling, and ended up grabbing his hand and pulling from the pipe. And one of my feet were dug into this edge of this hill, and then my other foot was down here in the mud like Todd. And Todd had a foot there and up there on the grass. Harry and Miss Cannon, they would have been about up here, kind of as me and Todd tried pulling Jordan up out of the pipe. Then they were helping us get him up out of the water. It took a little bit. It all happened really quick. A lot of it was a blur. I don't know how long he was in that pipe, but he got sucked in it. Then she noticed he wasn't there. She screamed. We ran, got down there and started pulling, and it took a bit. It was a strong current, and we were 13. I mean, we pulled and pulled and pulled. I remember digging my feet in pretty hard and pulling with everything I had, and Todd was pulling with everything he had, and we were pulling against the current. And we were kids, and if Jordan had let go of that pipe and just let himself go through the driveway, would he have came out on the other side? I don't know. Would he have dug his feet into the sides of the pipe to prevent going through it and then drown halfway under the driveway? Probably. He was small enough he could have gone through the pipe and came out the other side. But that's just not the way it happened. We pulled and pulled and pulled and got Jordan up past the current. And I remember when his head got above water, he was pale white. And his eyes were big, and he was pale white. And we got him up, and Harry and Miss Cannon kind of helped grab his shirt and pull him up too. Then me and Todd came up out and got up on the edge of this hill and got him up there to sit down on her driveway and let him start breathing and catching his breath, and just kind of grab hold of him and let him know he was okay. And yeah, we were all in shock. We were all like, "Whoa, how did this fun time turn so quick and go this direction?" Again, we were kids. We weren't thinking about a current or anything like that, and it was out of sight, out of mind. And so here's the story. Jordan went back home. We helped get him home, and then I guess we just finished out the rest of our day. I think we stopped playing that day in the water. We didn't play in the ditch anymore. We kind of washed up, cleaned up, got some lunch, some late lunch, and Jordan went home and told his mom and dad, and we didn't know it, but his mom called the newspaper. This was a Florence newspaper called the News and Shopper. So she called the News and Shopper. I think it still exists as a newspaper. I think the name changed to something else. I forget what it's called now. But it covers Florence, Darlington, and Pamplico, Effingham, and Timmonsville. So it has a pretty wide local area, the PD area. So Jordan's mom calls the News and Shopper, and the lady who did this article was Brenda Wells. I don't know. It seemed like it was a couple of days. Jeff's mom, or Jeff and Jordan's mom, Miss Denise Pitts, called us and said, "Hey fellas, I've called the newspaper, told them what happened, and they think it's kind of a very good story, very nice story of some friends playing together and rescuing another friend. So they want to come out and do a story on you guys and what happened." And we were like, wow, that's really cool. Thank you. So, things take a couple of days to happen. So I don't remember what day of the week that this photo was taken. The incident happened on Thursday, August the 20th of 92, and the newspaper hit the streets Wednesday morning of August the 26th. So somewhere, maybe it was Saturday or that Monday, I don't know, but the newspaper called our parents and told us what time they were coming out. So each one of our parents was like, "Hey, make sure you clean up good and look presentable for a photo." So of course I go get my Batman t-shirt, Gotham, and I think Todd's in an Atlanta Braves t-shirt, and Harry got a soccer t-shirt. Anyway, to us that was a good photo t-shirts, worthy of a front page of a newspaper, I guess. Anyway, we met with Miss Brenda Wells. We walked down the street. We stood at the pipe. We kind of told her what happened, kind of confirmed what Jeff's mom had told her, and she wrote up this article and snapped a shot, and we were told it would be in the Wednesday edition, and here it is. And I think it's a good story, and I'm glad we were there. I'm glad that Miss Cannon yelled and screamed that he went under, and we were there, and we all did what we did, and Jordan's doing great today, and he's still here. We're all still friends. We're all still friends, and I love this photo, and I love the story. Me and Harry were going into 7th grade, and Todd was going into 8th grade. And we were at the same middle school. And I remember after the first week of school, they called all of us to the office. And me and Todd and Harry were the first students of the month for September of 1992. The principal called us up to the office, gave us we all got a t-shirt, and they shook our hand and thanked us. And I don't remember about the other guys, but I know a couple of my teachers had this article cut out and thumbtacked to their little cork board in the classroom. it was kind of a big deal for a while, and we were very gracious and honored. And anybody would have done the same thing had they been in our shoes. But we were grateful to have been there, and do what we did. It took all four of us to get Jordan out. Me and Todd probably couldn't have done it on our own. It was a strong current. Anyway, we got through the rest of that year, and we thought it kind of had died down a little bit. But me and Todd were in a group kind of like Boy Scouts, but it was called Royal Rangers, and it was through our church. It's kind of like a Boy Scout group. You know, teach young men how to sharpen knives and tie ropes or tie knots and live off the land and stuff like that. And you earn badges and things. We were in that group at our church, Royal Rangers, and we were outpost number 6. And Harry had been a few times. He was just busy, and Harry wasn't like officially a member, but he came with us sometime. But me and Todd pretty much regular every Wednesday night at church in that group. But anyway, fast forward through the rest of 1992, and now we're in 93, and we kind of put all this stuff behind us and didn't really think about it much. And my dad was one of the commanders, and it was late January of 93 or sometime in February. But I remember my dad kept telling me and Todd that coming up on a Saturday we were going to go to Columbia for a big Royal Ranger meeting. And we're like, that sounds like an adult thing. Like, we're kids, we don't care about a meeting. And they're like, no, trust me, you guys need to be there. It's going to be, it's going to be at the Western Steer, and we're going to have a big banquet room reserved, and you guys need to be there. And I remember thinking to Todd, man, I'd rather be playing. We got clubhouses to build. We got, bicycle riding stuff to do. We don't want to go to some boring meeting. And so we like really resisted. We did not want to go to some meeting with a bunch of grown-ups at a buffet, talking about numbers and talking about stuff. So our parents strongly convinced us to go to this banquet and told us we had to dress up in our uniforms and all that stuff. So I had my uniform on, wondering why, and the rest of us were dressed up. Well, we got up there to Columbia, which I never thought I'd live down the street from where this happened at. But in Columbia on St. Andrews Road, there was a restaurant called, it was Western Steer back in the day. And I think the restaurant was built in 1980. And certainly when we came up there for the big banquet in 93, it was still a Western Steer. But it was later it became a restaurant called the Hilltop. And then through some bad events, a manager was robbed and killed in early 2000s, and the restaurant kind of shut down in 2005. And it sat empty for a long time. And in 2021, a QT gas station bought the property, leveled the building, and it's a really big, nice QT gas station now. But back in the day, it was a really, really nice restaurant, the Western Steer. So we all came up to Columbia, and in a minute, we'll go to the video. My great aunt, she was there, my grandmother, my uncle, my parents, and they filmed it, and we'll go to that footage in just a minute. But there was a big banquet presentation. They had some other awards they gave out for Commander of the Year and Outpost of the Year and different things and stuff like that. But at the end of the banquet, they called up a young man that had pulled his sister, I believe, out of a wrecked car, and they gave him a Medal of Valor. And then they called up me and Todd and Harry. Jordan wasn't there. Jordan didn't go. But they called me, Todd, and Harry up, and they gave me and Todd Medal of Valor, and they gave Harry a Certificate of Valor, if I remember correctly. Harry wasn't technically a member of the Royal Ranger group, but they did honor him, and they gave him a Certificate of Valor. and I always wished that he had gotten a medal like we did. But I was, I had no power, no say-so in that. But yeah, they called us up front. They read this article. So I'm not going to read this article. When I show the video in a minute, you can hear the guy read the article. But I'll run the camera over it, and you can kind of read it if you want to read it. So the end of this article reads out with, at the request of residents, city workers were out on Friday morning looking at the ditch to see about getting it piped in. My buddy Todd, his mom still lives in the house this next door to this one. And now that ditch never got filled in. It never got covered in. It never got piped and covered over. That ditch looks exactly the same now as it did 32 years ago. 32 years ago. Hadn't changed. It looks the same. That bush is now a big tree. I couldn't put my hands on it, but in 2012, me and Harry and Todd and Jordan all kind of reunited and went back to Florence, and we took some photos as like an anniversary kind of thing. We took some photos standing in front of that ditch, and I remember that tree was a lot bigger, and yeah, it looked exactly the same. They never filled it in, but it sounded nice in the newspaper that they were going to fill it in, but they did not. And the lady, I think she had gotten married. Her name had changed in 2012. But she ran another story on us, and it was really nice. It was like a reunion kind of story, and it was a shot of us grown up, and it kind of went over our jobs at the time. I was a youth pastor at the time. Todd was an electrical engineer working for GE, and Harry was a police officer, supervisor up in for Richland County Sheriff's Department, and Jordan. He does some kind of computer work stuff too. Yeah, they ran an article and published some new. I think the photos that I just shared earlier, some of these old photos down here. I think they published some of those in the paper, and it was a nice article. And if I can find it, I'll put it up later. But this is the original, and I still have my Medal of Valor that I received 32 years ago. This is what it looked like. It's from the Royal Rangers Association. It was really nice, and it's an honor to have this. Anyway, so somewhere along this video, I'll cut over, and we'll show the video footage of the banquet. Now remember, this is 1993. The video quality is not not good by today's standards. Might be jumpy a little bit, but it was. It all happened in the banquet room of the Western Steer on St. Andrews Road in Columbia, South Carolina, in late January or February of 1993. And in that spot today sits a really nice QT gas station. But this is the story of what happened on August 20th, 1992, among four friends who were having a good time in the midst of some bad weather right before going back to school. Now, thanks for watching. I've got a lot more stories like this from other things, playing in the woods, building forts and tree houses, and one Halloween that was very interesting. This same year, Halloween of '92, that was a whole nother story. But stick around, please subscribe to the channel, like, and stick around because there's a lot of interesting stuff coming. Thanks for watching.
I'll be back at school next week. We'd like to have Trevor Paul, Todd Parfit, Gary Holmes. Come forward. Right around here, face everybody, folks.
There was no time to call 911. Young Jordan Pitts was sucked under, and the strong, fast-moving floodwater was taking him into the drainage pipe. The quick action of a Parkwood resident and three young boys saved his life. It started off as a fun time. The heavy rains on Thursday didn't dampen the spirits of these local youth. Spurred by imagination and their own creativity, they gathered air mattresses and makeshift rafts and spent the morning floating down the newly created river, which ran along an open ditch at Yellowstone Drive in the Parkwood subdivision. The water spilled way beyond the ditch onto the yards inside of the road. Petite 8-year-old Jordan was wading along the ditch bank when the wrong step left him at the mercy of a swirling whirlpool, which snatched him beneath the surface into the murky waters. I tried to dig my feet into the dirt and push out, he told the news shopper. I held my breath and raised my hand. Nobody saw Jordan fall into the whirlpool created by the racing floodwaters, but Patty Buchanan, who happened to be near her mailbox, saw his little hand above the water near the drain pipe. She screamed for help, and Harry Polis, Todd Parfit, and Trevor Paul, who were standing nearby, ran over to help. Harry and Mrs. Cannon grabbed Jordan's army shirt while Todd and Trevor jumped in the ditch and pulled him out. The boys said the current was pulling Jordan into the drainage pipe when they got to him. Todd and Trevor, both 13, are members of the Royal Rangers, Outpost 6, which is sponsored by the Florence First Assembly of God Church. The Rangers' motto is ready, and the two youngsters quickly upheld the motto they have so often pledged to keep. Jordan is the son of Denise and Bill Pitts. They are so grateful to the four who rescued their son. I just want the world to know what these boys and this wonderful lady have done, said Mrs. Pitts. I can never thank them enough. The ditch which runs on the right side of Yellowstone Drive is the only uncovered ditch in the Parkwood subdivision. At the request of residents, city workers were out Friday morning looking for the ditch to see if I could find it.
And again, it's my great pleasure to present to Trevor the Medal of Valor. This is really unique for me. This first time I've been to the boat for so many boys in 1 year. Todd, thank you very much. Now Harry wasn't quite in the dangers of the other two boys. The national office has given him It's